Dr. Aaron Blake stood on the bridge of the research vessel Horizon, his hands shaking slightly as he looked at the glowing console before him. Years of calculations, simulations, and failed experiments had led to this moment. The faster-than-light drive was not just another engine. It was a machine that bent reality itself, tearing through layers of space in ways no species had ever dared. The hum of the drive filled the ship, low and deep, as though the universe itself was warning them to stop. Aaron glanced at Claire Matthews, the lead engineer, who stood by the control interface, her eyes sharp but filled with unease. She nodded slowly, signaling she was ready. The countdown began. Lights flickered across the bridge. The crew, a mixture of young scientists and nervous operators, held their breath as the numbers ticked down. At 0, Claire pressed her hand onto the activation plate. For an instant, nothing happened. Then the horizon lurched as though it had been yanked by invisible chains. Space outside the windows rippled like water, stars stretching into streaks of light before twisting into spirals. The human crew gasped, some clutching the rails, as their bodies felt both weightless and impossibly heavy at the same time. In less than a heartbeat, the view shifted. The familiar stars of their system were gone. A new set of stars filled the void, brighter, sharper, and arranged in patterns none of them recognized. The navigation officer screamed that they had crossed 10 light years in seconds. What stunned them even more was not just the speed, it was the scar they had left behind. On the sensors, a violent distortion churned where they once were, like a wound in the fabric of the galaxy. It pulsed outward, disrupting signals and bending light as though space itself was bleeding. Aaron stared at the readings, unable to process what he was seeing. "This isn't just travel," he whispered. "We didn't move through space. We tore it open." Claire's face went pale. Her hands trembled as she read the core's energy signatures. It was still pulsing, alive, as though the drive was feeding on something beyond human understanding. She had expected glitches or turbulence, but not this. It felt wrong, like a weapon disguised as an engine. Suddenly, alarms blared across the horizon. Communications officers shouted that nearby alien fleets had lost contact with their home stations. Long-range beacons had gone dark. Merchant ships across sectors were stranded without navigation. The distortion they left behind was sending shockwaves through subspace, rippling outward like a storm. The human crew exchanged horrified looks. Their single test had already caused chaos across the stars. Aaron walked slowly to the viewport, watching the endless sea of stars beyond. He wanted to feel triumph. After all, humanity had achieved something no species had ever managed. Faster-than-light travel, real and raw, stood in their hands. Yet instead of pride, a heavy dread filled him. The horizon had not just broken barriers, it had broken something far more delicate. He thought about the other civilizations out there, the ones who had always warned humanity about pushing too far. Now he understood why. Claire turned to him, her voice quiet but trembling with fear. "Aaron, this drive isn't just dangerous, it shouldn't exist." Her words cut through the hum of the ship like a knife. Every member of the crew felt the same chill settle over them. What they had built was not progress, it was a threat, something that could rip apart the balance of the galaxy with every use. Aaron remembered the decades of struggle on Earth, the wars, the hunger, the desperate race to survive in a galaxy dominated by older, stronger empires. Humanity had always been seen as reckless, stubborn, and hungry for more. Now, with this engine, those whispers would turn into screams. He realized their invention would not be celebrated. It would be feared. The crew sat in silence as the horizon drifted in its new position, their instruments still shaking from the jump. No one spoke for long minutes. Finally, Captain Daniel Hayes, who had been silent until now, addressed them in a firm voice. "We've crossed a line today. What we do next will decide the fate of Earth and maybe the galaxy. No one can know about this until we understand it better." But deep down, Aaron and Claire already knew the truth. The distortion was too large, the signal too loud. Every ship in range had felt the tremors of their leap. Word would spread quickly, reaching the Council of Worlds within hours. They had not only tested a drive, they had announced humanity's arrival as a power no one could ignore. Aaron's thoughts raced as he remembered the moment of the jump. For a split second before the horizon had stabilized, he swore he had seen something. A flicker in the folds of space, a shadow that wasn't a star or distortion, but something watching. He shook the thought away, but the unease clung to him like a second skin. Claire shut down the drive, her hands moving quickly over the controls. She looked at Aaron with hollow eyes. We can't use it again. Not until we understand what it does. One more jump like that and we might not come back. Aaron wanted to agree, but he also knew humanity. Someone back on Earth would see the chaos as power, not danger. Someone would want to use it, no matter the cost. The Horizon floated silently in deep space, its crew staring out into the dark void. They had gone further than anyone ever had, but instead of victory, all they felt was fear. The drive sat in the heart of their ship, quiet but alive, like a beast waiting to be unleashed again. Aaron placed his hand on the console, the cold metal humming beneath his palm, and whispered a thought he did dare share aloud. What if they hadn't invented the drive at all? What if it had chosen them? The distortion left behind by Horizon's first jump spread further than anyone expected. Subspace waves rippled across star systems, warping communication streams and scrambling long-range beacons. Entire trade routes blinked offline. Merchant vessels found themselves lost in the dark, their navigation systems spinning with false readings. One Cathari freighter reported seeing duplicates of itself, ghostly shadows of its own hull trailing across the void. Panic spread as whole sectors fell silent, and whispers began to circulate in alien courts. The humans had broken something fundamental. On Horizon, Claire Matthews leaned over the core chamber. The drive still pulsed, each throb sending vibrations through the deck plates. The readings were strange, energy spikes that behaved less like mechanical output and more like a heartbeat. She wiped sweat from her brow and muttered, "It's not just running, Aaron. It's alive." "Doctor." Aaron Blake frowned but could not deny the truth in her voice. The patterns on her screen resembled neural waves, not power cycles. Every second the drive remained active, the ship's instruments picked up anomalies, fractured timestamps, overlapping signals, and ghost transmissions from places that didn't exist. Beyond Horizon's hull, alien patrols monitoring deep space felt the disturbance. A Varnak listening post exploded when its reactors overloaded from distorted subspace echoes. The news reached the Council of Worlds within hours. Delegates from dozens of species crowded into a secure chamber, their voices raised in fear. Reports of stranded fleets, disappearing ships, and broken communication lines filled the session. The chaos had a single source: Earth. For centuries, humans had been called reckless inventors, daring explorers who ignored every warning about balance. Now the galaxy had proof. On the bridge of Horizon, Captain Daniel Hayes studied the starfield ahead. His navigation officer whispered that they had traveled 10 light years in the blink of an eye, but the cost was everywhere around them. He could feel the crew's unease. What should have been a triumph felt like a crime. The ship's sensors displayed the distortion they had left behind. It was not fading. Instead, it was growing, a storm of twisted energy that clawed at space like a wound that refused to heal. "We cut through the galaxy's skin," Daniel murmured, his voice heavy. "And now it's bleeding." Aaron wanted to celebrate, but he could not shake the feeling that they had awakened something. He replayed the jump over and over, staring at the moment space had folded. In one frame, for less than a heartbeat, he saw shadows that did not belong to any ship. Figures in the folds of space, watching, shifting, gone in an instant. When he mentioned it to Claire, she went pale. She admitted she had felt it too, like a presence brushing against her mind as the drive roared to life. Alien fleets scrambled to respond. The Terralis border guards reported their shield networks collapsing when the shockwave passed. The Erlans, humanity's allies, received frantic calls from merchants begging for rescue. And in the middle of it all, the Council of Worlds declared an emergency session. Delegates argued whether to sanction Earth, blockade its borders, or declare war before humanity unleashed another disaster. For the first time in centuries, the mighty council chambers trembled with fear, not of warships, but of a single human invention. Back on Horizon, Claire locked the drive into containment, but even sealed, it continued to hum, pulsing like a buried heart. Aaron leaned close to the core and whispered, "What are you?" The drive gave no answer, but the lights on the control panel flickered as though it had heard. An alien scout ship picked up the disturbance first. its sensors screaming with anomalies as it traced the scars left in subspace. The vessel, sleek and needle-shaped, belonged to the Dravari, a species known for their precision and fear of chaos. Its captain expected to find wreckage, maybe a collapsed star lane, but instead, the readings led them straight to Horizon. The human ship floated calmly, its drive still warm from the jump. To the Dravari, it looked less like a vessel and more like a predator hiding in still waters. The scout ship approached cautiously, broadcasting warnings in a dozen languages. On Horizon's bridge, Captain Daniel Hayes ordered silence. The humans didn't answer the hails. Aaron Blake stood beside him, studying the alien signatures. The Dravari ship was circling them, scanning aggressively. Claire Matthews muttered, "They're afraid of us. They think we're a weapon." Her words proved true when the Dravari powered up their shields, preparing for interception. The crew tensed as the alien ship locked targeting systems. Daniel made a choice. We don't fire. We don't run. We show them. He turned to Claire. Light the drive. The Horizon's core came alive with a deep, throbbing hum. Space outside twisted violently, stars bending as if drawn into a whirlpool. The Dravari crew panicked, watching their screens fracture with impossible data. Before their eyes, the human ship vanished, tearing a scar through reality. Then, in less than a breath, Horizon reappeared. Not in front of them, but behind them, slipping past their defenses as though shields and distance meant nothing. On the alien bridge, the Dravari captain froze. To him, it was not speed. It was sorcery. His weapons officers begged to fire, but he knew it would be pointless. If humans could move like this, no shield could stop them. No fortress could stand. His crew stared at the viewport in silence as the human ship held its position behind them. Guns, cold, waiting. On Horizon, Daniel gave a single order. Do not engage. Let them see us, then let them live. Aaron's stomach twisted. He realized the truth. What had just happened wasn't a demonstration of travel. It was a demonstration of power. The alien ship had seen humanity cut through folded space as if it were nothing. They had seen a predator appear behind them with ease. Claire's hands shook as she shut down the core. We didn't just scare them, she whispered. We've shown the galaxy we can hunt. The alien scout transmitted frantic reports back to its empire. Every word carried terror. Humans had crossed the line between explorers and monsters. And in the council chambers far away, whispers began to spread. Humanity had forged a weapon disguised as a starship. The council chambers shook with the roar of countless voices, 100 species all demanding to be heard at once. Holograms of fractured trade routes and collapsed beacon networks spun above the central platform, proof of the chaos humans had unleashed. Delegates shouted accusations, their translators spitting out words like reckless, dangerous, and unnatural. The Great Hall, usually a place of calculated diplomacy, seethed with fear. The Dravari delegate slammed his clawed hand against the table, his crest trembling with rage. They appeared behind our warship as if shields were nothing. What they wield is not travel, it is annihilation wrapped in steel. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The memory of the scout's desperate transmission still clung to the air, playing on repeat in every delegate's mind, the human ship moving like a ghost through folded space. Others demanded immediate sanctions. The Cathari ambassador hissed that Earth's borders should be sealed, its research stations dismantled before more damage spread. A faction of the Varnak delegation went further, urging preemptive strikes, arguing that humans could not be trusted with such power. But scattered among the fear were sparks of temptation. The Koran leaned forward, their eyes gleaming, whispering to allies that the drive could shift the balance of the galaxy. To them, this human invention was not a curse, it was a prize. At the heart of the storm, Ambassador Julia Carter stood alone on the speaking platform. She raised her voice over the chaos, her words steady but defiant. Humanity has always sought the stars. We do not deny what has happened, but we will not be condemned for discovery. You call it dangerous. We call it the future. Her voice echoed through the chamber, but instead of calming the delegates, it only sharpened the divide. The council chair, an ancient being of crystalline form, flickered with unease. You have torn the fabric of space. This is no longer exploration. It is destabilization of the galaxy itself. His words sent a wave of unease through the chamber. Delegates whispered about fractures in reality, of echoes and shadows reported after Horizon's jump. Rumors claimed entire fleets had seen ghosts of themselves, as if time had been split. Julia clenched her fists, refusing to back down. Every empire here was built on risk. Every star you occupy was once forbidden. Every ship once feared impossible. You fear humanity because we dared where you would not. Her defiance burned like a spark in the silence that followed. Yet in the quiet corners of the chamber, whispers grew louder. The word weapon passed from tongue to tongue. It was not the horizon they feared. It was the possibility that humanity might build 100 more. The council had gathered to contain an invention, but what they saw was something worse. They saw a species willing to rip open the universe itself and step through without hesitation. The news spread faster than light itself. Humans had broken the galaxy. On allied worlds, trust cracked like glass. The Erelans, who had once fought side by side with Earth against pirate fleets, withdrew their patrols, claiming neutrality. Their leaders spoke politely of caution, but their silence carried fear. Old friendships felt fragile, as though even speaking support for humanity might invite disaster. The Corran took a different path. Their envoys whispered in secret halls, offering deals behind closed doors. They admired the recklessness of Earth, the audacity to create what no other dared. To them, the Horizon's drive was not a mistake. It was a key to dominance. Already, rumors spread of Corran's spies moving through the underbelly of human space stations, bribing officers, hunting for scraps of Horizon's data. Every fragment of code, every energy reading became a target. On Horizon itself, Claire Matthews caught the first sign of infiltration. A security sweep uncovered tampered files in the core's diagnostics. Someone had slipped into the system and tried to copy drive schematics during the test run. She slammed her fists on the console. "It's not just the Council," she told Aaron Blake, voice trembling with anger. "Our so-called allies are already stealing from us." Aaron's jaw tightened. He had expected opposition, but not betrayal so quickly. Meanwhile, each attempt to stabilize the drive ended in failure. The core pulsed unpredictably, sometimes drawing power from the ship's systems, other times bending sensor readings until entire rooms flickered with echoes of themselves. Claire logged every anomaly, but her notes only deepened the fear. "Every test we run makes the scars wider," she admitted. "One day space won't close behind us." Captain Daniel Hayes watched his crew grow restless. Some officers whispered that the Council was right, that the drive was too dangerous to exist. Others, hardened by years of human struggle, muttered that fear was proof of power, that the galaxy finally respected Earth. Daniel could feel the divide widening even within his own people. Humanity stood between triumph and catastrophe, and both paths began with the same invention. In the shadows of the Council, factions argued not whether the humans should be stopped, but how. Some pushed for blockades, others called for assassination of the scientists themselves. Yet a few, quieter and more dangerous, began plotting how to seize the technology intact. For every voice of caution, there was another of ambition. The galaxy was dividing, and at its center stood Horizon, a single human ship carrying the most dangerous secret ever born. Claire's eyes stayed locked on the core display as she ran another sweep of the readings. What she found twisted her stomach. The drive wasn't just unstable, it was mutating. Buried deep in the energy waves was a signature that didn't belong, a residue unlike anything human science had recorded. It pulsed like tar-black fire, clinging to the lattice of folded space the Horizon had cut through. "It's alien," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The drive absorbed something when we jumped." The data was undeniable. Their invention had fused itself with a fragment of dark matter residue, turning the core into a living hybrid, neither machine nor phenomenon. She rushed to Aaron Blake with her findings, and his face drained of color as he scanned the logs. The equations no longer matched their design. They had built the skeleton of the drive, yes, but now something else filled it with muscle and blood. Aaron muttered, "We didn't just invent a new engine. We opened a door and something stepped inside." Before he could act, a coded message reached Horizon from Earth's own fleet. A rogue faction, emboldened by fear and ambition, demanded immediate transfer of the drive schematics. Their words were sharp, almost threatening. If the Council came for humanity, the only way to survive would be to weaponize the technology before anyone else. To them, the FTL wasn't a tool for exploration. It was Earth's ultimate deterrent. Captain Daniel Hayes gathered his senior crew in the dim light of the command room. "If we hand this over to the militarists," he said, his voice hard, "we give them a sword that can cut through the galaxy itself." But silence followed. Everyone knew the truth. There were those on Earth who already saw the drive as salvation, a way to end centuries of living under alien dominance. Julia Carter sent word from the council, her tone urgent. Delegates were whispering about military strikes, but spies had already reported factions within human command working on weapon prototypes. She warned Daniel that if humanity did not control itself, no argument could save them from war. In the quiet hum of Horizon's halls, Claire confided in Aaron. "Every time the core pulses, I feel it watching us, like it wants to be used." She wasn't speaking in metaphors. She was speaking in fear. Aaron didn't argue. He felt it too, a hunger radiating from the drive, as if the alien residue wasn't passive but alive, adapting, waiting for its chance. The crew began to fracture under the pressure. Some wanted to shut the drive down forever, to bury it in the void. Others whispered in corners that power like this could never be hidden. It was humanity's chance to stand above the council, to finally command respect. Daniel and Julia found themselves caught between diplomacy and betrayal, staring at a future where the greatest threat to humanity wasn't alien fleets, it was humanity itself. The ultimatum arrived in the form of a single transmission, its words cold and absolute. Surrender the drive, dismantle the Horizon, and place the scientists under council custody, or face annihilation. The message carried the weight of 100 empires, their fleets already shifting into position along the borders of human space. To the council, this was not negotiation. It was a command. Julia Carter stood before the secure channel, her jaw tight as she read the decree aloud to Earth's leaders. Behind her, the holograms of council warships filled the chamber, rows upon rows of steel and firepower poised to strike. "They want us on our knees," she said bitterly. "They don't fear the drive because it is dangerous. They fear it because it is ours." Silence followed her words, broken only by the whispers of those who knew war was closer than peace. Back on Horizon, Daniel Hayes gathered his crew. The weight of the ultimatum pressed on every soul aboard. Some begged to surrender, terrified of dragging Earth into destruction. Others stood defiant, their eyes burning with the belief that humanity had been bullied long enough. "If we yield," Daniel said quietly, "we give them the right to chain us forever. If we resist, we risk burning everything we've built." No one answered. The choice felt impossible. Aaron and Claire worked without sleep in the core chamber, their hands raw from long hours of recalibrations. Every test threatened collapse, yet they pushed forward, chasing the dream of a stable jump that could prove the drive was more than chaos. Claire's voice cracked as she whispered, "If we fail, it won't just kill us. It could erase them. All of them." Her words hung in the air like smoke. Julia, carrying Earth's defiance into the council chamber, delivered her reply. "We will not surrender discovery. We will not be stripped of our right to explore because you fear us." Her declaration sent shockwaves across the chamber. Delegates hissed, shouted, some stormed from their seats. The ultimatum had been rejected. The council demanded proof of control. Horizon was summoned to the core of their fleets, ordered to perform a demonstration before the gathered empires. Daniel accepted, though every breath in his chest felt heavy. If the jump succeeded, humanity might survive the storm. If it failed, the Horizon would become the spark that ignited a galactic war. In the hours before departure, the ship was silent. Crew members wrote letters home, unsure if they would ever see Earth again. Claire ran her fingers across the humming core, whispering to it like a prayer. Aaron stood beside her, staring into the glow, and confessed the thought he hadn't dared say aloud. "I don't think we're controlling it anymore. I think it's leading us." The Horizon floated at the center of the Council's armada, a lone human vessel surrounded by the glittering might of 100 species. Warships bristled with weapons, shields shimmered in layers, and every sensor was locked on the humans. The chamber above was silent, delegates watching from orbiting platforms, waiting to see if Earth would prove its claim or seal its own death sentence. Aaron Blake stood in the core chamber, his hand hovering over the activation plate. Claire Matthews was beside him, her lips pressed tight, her eyes fixed on the pulsing light. The drive's hum filled the ship, low and heavy, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Over the intercom, Daniel Hayes gave the order, "Engage." The core erupted and the horizon vanished. For one terrible instant, every council ship recorded the same impossible reading. The human vessel had not moved but split, its image scattering into fragments across timelines. Shadows of the horizon appeared beside warships, behind stations, even inside the council chamber itself, ghostly echoes flickering through reality. Some crews screamed as they saw doubles of their own ships, mirror images drifting alongside them before dissolving into nothing. Then, as suddenly as it began, the horizon reappeared, whole and untouched, drifting calmly at the exact coordinates it had left. The silence that followed was deeper than any void. Delegates stared at their readings in horror, their minds unable to grasp what had just occurred. This was not travel. It was something greater, something far more terrifying. The humans had shown them not just speed, but dominion over the threads of space and time. Claire's hands shook as she stabilized the core, sweat dripping down her face. "We held it," she whispered, though even she did not believe it. Aaron knew the truth. What they had seen was no triumph of engineering. It was a glimpse of something that should never have been touched. Yet it was theirs now, bound to them, impossible to undo. In the council chamber, whispers spread like wildfire. Some delegates begged for immediate war, demanding Earth's destruction before the drive could multiply. Others sat frozen, knowing what they had witnessed could not be stopped. Banning it was useless. Ignoring it was suicide. Humanity had stepped onto a path no one else dared, and the galaxy was powerless to drag them back. Julia Carter rose, her voice steady as her words cut through the silence. "You asked for proof. You asked if we control it. You have seen the answer. Humanity will not retreat, and we will not be erased. We go forward, not because it is safe, but because it is who we are." No applause followed, no outcry, only silence. The silence of empires realizing that the balance of the galaxy had shifted forever. In that silence, humanity's fate was sealed. They would be feared, they would be watched, and whether the horizon had saved them or doomed them, one truth remained. The humans had done the impossible, and the galaxy could never unsee it.